idea is it's the ultimate. Yeah, we're going back to that series I created years and years ago. The ultimate series. We are doing the ultimate curry beef. I've got 2.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil in my pot, medium heat. Now here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, you would have seen this recipe posted on CaribbeanPot.com back in 2009. This is a refresh of that recipe and we're adding additional flavors to it, thus the ultimate curry beef. You can't go wrong. This is so easy to follow along. Onion, garlic, and that's quite a bit of garlic. That's about 12 cloves of garlic I added in there. I want to hit that with some fresh ground black pepper. And I'm going to turn my heat down ever so slightly, so a medium low, because I want this to cook gently for a bit. I don't want to burn the garlic. Just going to move that around. Yes, we did start off with a fair amount of that vegetable oil in there. Simply because once we add the curry powder and stuff in there, you're going to see it's going to soak all of that up later on. I mean, you can go with half of the oil to maybe a tablespoon and a half, and later on you can add some more if you wanted to, but I just want to flavor that oil here that you're seeing to start with. 2 minutes later, I've got the Scotch bonnet pepper, and I'm using the entire Scotch bonnet pepper. I'll just show you seeds and everything. I personally believe a curry is meant to be spicy, but with that said, you can add as much or zero spicy pepper as you like, and any spicy pepper will work, anything you have available, because I know some of you are based in Europe, you're based in Asia, wherever you are based, even in North America, there's certain places you can't get access to Scotch bonnet. So anything you can get access to, and in the amounts that you can handle, toss it in there. Dehydrated or dried curry leaves, if you have fresh curry leaves, yes, I am not hating. I encourage you to participate with that. We are cooking Caribbean, so in goes that Caribbean green seasoning, and I will add a bit more because I want about 2 tablespoons of that in there. So 2 tablespoons of that Caribbean green seasoning. If you head over to CaribbeanPot.com, I've got the recipe there, including how I get it to remain that beautiful green color without any additives or anything like that. And Caribbean green seasoning is essentially a blend or a puree of all the herbs, along with seasoning peppers and garlic and everything else that we like using in our dishes in the Caribbean. I'm gonna hit that a good mix, and we're gonna continue cooking that on that sort of medium-low heat for about 3 or 4 minutes. I want all those flavors to really come out and sort of season up that oil before we go in with the curry element in there. With my heat still on that sort of medium-low, in goes my curry powder. And you can use your favorite curry powder, or maybe you make your own curry powder. It's totally up to you. If you have access to a local Caribbean or West Indian grocery store, I would highly encourage you to visit there, because this is where you're going to find all of the, well, providing you're not based in the Caribbean, this is where you're going to find all of the ingredients that I'm using here, especially the next 2 ingredients that I'll be adding. Here's something a little bit different. It's called duck and goat curry, and that tends to be a bit spicy. I love using that. And the other thing I like using is some anchar masala. If you don't have the anchar masala, you can go ahead and use ground roasted jeera or cumin. Cumin jeera, same thing, but make sure it's ground roasted. And this brings up tip number 1 for making that wicked ultimate curry beef. You really want to create that deep, rich, spiced base. This is the sort of base, this is the building blocks here. And by slowly cooking it here at this point here, with the curry powder, with the anchar masala, with that duck and goat curry powder, which can be a bit spicy, a ton of garlic, the curry leaves, if you wanted to put a couple slices of ginger in here, you can do that as well. It allows for when the beef finally goes in there to really take on that deep, rich curry flavor. So tip 1, create this lovely base here. My other sort of tip is a tomato, just a diced tomato. And the reason for that diced tomato, 1, it brings acidity to the game, which helps to balance off the boldness of the curry. And later on you will see when that melts down, it becomes a sort of a sort of a liquid paste, which will later on, when we braise and we're done braising the beef, because we have to cook it slowly, you have to, it will help you develop a lovely gravy. So tip 2 for that gravy, add that tomato in there to help pull it all together. At this point is where I like adding my salt. Later on you can adjust the salt to your liking. Now that we've sort of wet toasted or fried the curry, which allows the all the spices which makes up that curry powder to really bloom, what we got to do is cook out the rawness. And if you watched any of my curry videos, you will know I like doing this. It is something that's been passed on to me and, you know, just about most people in the Caribbean through generations, about cooking out the rawness of the curry. So we bloomed it. We want to cook out the rawness. If you don't cook out the rawness, two things can happen. One, some people who tend to visit the toilet or the bathroom after eating curry and they complain about it. One, it's either old, or two, they didn't allow it to sort of cook out the rawness. And two, you will get a sort of a gritty taste in your on your palate when you eat that curry, that grittiness, because we didn't cook out the curry. We need some water in there. It's going to turn my heat up a bit, and we're going to add that water. And all you need is about a cup of water. Ladies and gentlemen, the entire recipe, as always, will be available at caribbeanpot.com, so you gotta head over there after. Well, within 24 hours, I usually try to have it up there. We're gonna bring this up to a boil, yeah? And we're gonna cook that until all of that water dries out of there. So that's sort of medium-high heat I have it now. I want to cook off all that liquid. Again, it is a process. I know you're probably thinking, well, Chris, why add water if you're gonna just simply cook it out? Because what's gonna happen is, in cooking it out, not only are you gonna cook out the rawness, you're gonna intensify the curry flavor, and it's gonna allow everything to come together harmoniously. I have my beef here, and it's going to see sort of discoloration. Some of them, it's been washed with the juice of a lemon and water and drained. For the most part, it's boneless beef, but to get that rich, deep flavor, yeah, we got bones. I purposely bought 1 pound of beef with bones in there because you're gonna get that rich, deep beef flavor. So that is the other tip I'm gonna leave with you. Yes, everybody wants boneless beef, but adding some bones, even if it's just beef neck bones or whatever cheap cut of beef bones you can get, it's getting spicy. I highly suggest you use it in your curry beef. You will thank me for that. It will take about 4 or 5 minutes to get to where you're seeing here. And what I want to show you is the sort of separation I can get here. Clean separation that you're seeing. That means all of that liquid is burnt off. You know, you saw me use dried, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the dried or dehydrated curry leaves. If all you have is fresh, by all means, I wish I had fresh. What I want to do now is to add all of that beef in there. Just move it over so you can see, and here are the pieces of, with the bones. See, bones, 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 bones. But again, some of it is boneless as well. And that is one of the tips there for that beautiful, deep, rich flavor, and to get the tenderness without it being dry. When it comes to the beef, that is the tip I would leave with you. Make sure you have pieces with bones in there. Even if you take it out later on, that's fine. You don't need to serve it with the bones, but the point is, have some bones in there. What we want to do now, on that medium-high heat, I'm going to give this a toss, coat the pieces of beef with that curry base that we created, and then we're going to let it cook for about 2 or 3 minutes and sort of sear a little bit, really seal in water. If you wanted to add coconut milk, totally up to you. I am not a fan of coconut milk in curry, to be honest with you. So I won't, but if you wanted to go 50-50 coconut milk and water, that's fine. There you go. I've coated everything. I just wanted to sort of sear in that hot oil. And this is why I started off with all that oil, because I really want this to sear. Beef can be very dry. And this is why I wouldn't fret too much about going in a little heavy-handed with the oil at the very start. Now, if you wanted to use coconut oil, it'll give you a lovely flavor as well. Totally up to you. And I know some people use Change the lighting just a little bit there. I know some people use ghee or clarified butter. Again, totally up to you. Whatever. Olive oil, yo man, if you can afford olive oil and you want to rock it so with your olive oil, by all means. Anyhow, I'm gonna give this about 4 or 5 minutes, and then this is the sort of the second to last tip I'm gonna leave with you is low and slow. We're gonna put water in there, cover it with water, bring it up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and let that go low and slow anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. I want this fork tender. Yes, you can use, many people do, the pressure cooker, but what I find when you use pressure cooker with meats and anything, I don't, you know, man, me and pressure cooker ain't no friend. First of all, mommy had me convinced that pressure cooker dangerous, is gonna explode and kill everybody in the house. But besides that, I find it takes on a boiled taste where it's not deep and rich. For some reason, that fast cooking doesn't allow it to really go in there into the meat and make use of the bones and everything else. So if you have the time, yes, low and slow. If you wanted to put the lid on there, stick it in the oven, and it's, you know, a nice lid, you can do that as well. This way you don't have to stir and all that stuff like that. But I want it low and slow. I'm not employing the use of a pressure cooker at all. You can see how the lovely color it's taken on from searing it. And I'm not too worried about the color at this point, because once that water go in there and we start braising it, you will really get a lovely deeper, richer color later on. At this point is where I'm going to go in with hot water. I'm going to add a bit more water because I want this to completely cover, and bring it up to a boil. Then we're going to reduce it to a simmer. I'm going to put the lid on there, slightly ajar, so a bit of a space, and let that go for at least 90 minutes. You can see tiny bubbles starting to happen. So here's where I'm going to go in with a couple bay leaves, and that's just fresh bay leaves. If you have the dried bay leaves, totally up to you. I'm gonna, once it comes to the boil, you know, like I mentioned earlier, reduce it to a simmer, lid on, and let that slowly braise there. Remember, I also made the comment about 50-50 water and coconut milk. If you love coconut milk, will bring a sweetness to the game here. It's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I did add about 3/4 cups more water in there. This is where the sort of personalization is going to start happening. You will decide, and you know, you got to keep in mind that this will further thicken with the residual heat of the stove and the pot and everything else. Plus, you got to decide whether or not you want a lot of gravy, or if you want it dry. If you want it dry, and typically how mommy would cook this is almost dry, where you're seeing back the oils on the bottom that we started with. You don't have to do that. I'm eating this with rice. I'm not a fan of basmati or any of those kind of sort of flavored or fragrant rice. So I'm going to do parboiled brown rice, and Iman will be good, right? But again, you got to determine whether or not you want gravy and how much gravy you want. Supposing the beef is nice and tender, now you will go in with a fork or spoon, or even try it and see if it's nice and tender. It is tender. Taste and adjust the salt. And the final tip I will leave with you all is to add finishing flavors. I will do what my mom usually does with a curry, but when she's making curry, which is some chopped shadow benny, I'm going to go in there with. And shadow benny is also called culantro, but if you don't have culantro or shadow benny, you can use cilantro, which is known more commonly probably as coriander. So you want to get some chopped coriander in there. The other thing you can do, and mommy does this, is some ground roasted jeera. She would add at the end here as well. So not only you're getting the herbal notes from the shadow benny, but you're also getting a bit more pronounced spice note as well. So I am quite happy here. You know, if you wanted, you can take out the bay leaf and peel that out. It's done its thing. If you added ginger, you could take out the piece of ginger, unless you have people who like the ginger. Now remember, I added an entire Scotch bonnet pepper, so this is going to be spicy. Polly doesn't eat curry goats yet, but when he does, I'm going to hold back on that spicy pepper. So in goes that shadow benny, nice and chopped up. Yeah, and that's going to give it that nice herbal note. As I said, I got a bit more. And if you're based in North America, You'll get it at the Latin grocery stores, the Caribbean grocery stores, or West Indian grocery stores, or where I got this one is the Asian or Chinese grocery store. What I'm going to do now is shut off the stove. My salt is to my liking. I want that to maintain some of the brightness of the shadow benny. So I'm going to turn off my stove, but first I want to give it a stir just to make sure everything gets a little kiss of that shadow benny. Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com. We went through the process of making the ultimate curry beef. I highlighted the sort of key points to make it that incredible curry beef that everybody will be asking for time and time again. So I do urge you to give this one a try. It takes between 2.5 to 3 hours, but it's well worth it. Like I said, you want to do it in the oven, you can do it in the oven, 375 oven. Same amount of time, same amount of water and everything else. And I would start it first on the stove top. If you wanted to do it in the pressure cooker, by all means, that is an option. But for me, in my humble opinion, the best, and let's go in a little bit tighter, you'll see what's happening there. The best curry beef you will get is low and slow. Not just the curry beef, any sort of tough sort of cut of meat, I believe in low and slow. So yeah, give it a try. You're gonna love it, man. Alright, I'm gonna make my rice now and then tucking in later some watercress, some cucumber, and a couple slices of zabucao avocado. I good.